For many years, protein has carried a simple promise. More protein means more strength, more vitality, a healthier body. It's a belief shaped by everyday images we all recognize. A thick steak at dinner, bacon slowly crisping in the pan on a quiet weekend morning, a glass of whole milk poured without a second thought, or a serving of liver once praised as traditional nourishment. These foods feel familiar, even reassuring, especially after a lifetime of hearing they are good for you. What often goes unnoticed is how quietly your kidneys respond to these choices. They work around the clock, filtering and balancing, without pain or clear signals. There is no alarm when the workload increases, no sharp reminder to slow down. Many people continue feeling normal, sometimes for years, while subtle strain accumulates in the background. It's common for the first real sign to appear during a routine lab test when creatinine is slightly higher than expected, catching people by surprise. This video is here to bring clarity, not fear. It's about understanding which proteins tend to feel heavier on the body after 60 and which ones are generally considered gentler and easier to live with. If you stay with me, you'll learn which protein choices may be worth limiting and which ones are often viewed as safer options as we age. The goal is simple knowledge, so you can decide how to care for your body with confidence and balance. As we get older, the idea that more protein always means better health begins to change. In younger years, the body tends to adjust quickly. Meals are digested with ease, and recovery feels faster. After 60, that flexibility often feels different. The same amount of protein that once felt energizing can start to feel heavier, not because protein is wrong, but because the body processes it more slowly. Your kidneys play a quiet role in this process. Day and night, they help keep the internal environment steady, gently filtering what the body no longer needs. They don't speak up when the workload increases. There's no sharp signal or immediate discomfort. Instead, the change happens gradually, in small steps that are easy to miss during everyday life. Many people continue their usual habits, unaware that the balance has shifted. This is why strain often builds little by little. One meal doesn't make a difference on its own. It's the repetition, day after day, week after week. The body adapts as best it can until subtle signs begin to appear quietly in routine lab work or lingering fatigue. For many older adults, this comes as a surprise because nothing felt urgent or dramatic along the way. It's important to be clear here. Protein itself is not the problem. The body still needs it to stay active and supported. What matters more with age is choosing the right kind, preparing it gently, and keeping portions reasonable. When the type, the method, or the amount feels mismatched, the kidneys may feel the difference long before you do. One group of proteins, often seen as traditional and nourishing, deserves a closer look, especially later in life. Organ meats like liver, heart, and kidney have long been valued in many cultures. They're remembered as foods that once felt strengthening, especially during times when nutrition was scarce. Even today, many older adults keep them in their routine, trusting what worked decades ago. What changes after 60 is not the food itself, but how the body handles it. Organ meats tend to carry a heavier waste load when broken down, which means your kidneys stay busy for longer periods of time. Earlier in life, this extra work often passed unnoticed. With age, the body's ability to clear that load can feel slower and less flexible. Nothing sudden happens. The pressure builds quietly, meal by meal, without discomfort or warning. This is why moderation and preparation begin to matter more than tradition. For some people, eating organ meats frequently may feel like more than their system comfortably handles over time. That doesn't mean they must disappear entirely from the table. Small adjustments can make these foods feel gentler. One simple approach many people use is soaking organ meats briefly in cold water before cooking. This step is often described as a way to lighten their overall impact and make them easier to work with in the kitchen. It's not a cure or a fix, just a thoughtful way of reducing the burden that accumulates with repetition. Choices like these help create a sense of balance that the body can live with more comfortably. Red meat holds a special place in many American kitchens. Beef, lamb, and pork are often tied to family gatherings, traditions, and a sense of nourishment built over decades. For many people, these foods feel familiar and satisfying, and there is no need to treat them as something forbidden. What becomes important later in life is not avoiding red meat entirely, but paying closer attention to how often it appears and how it is prepared. As the body ages, heavier meals tend to linger longer during digestion. Red meat, especially when eaten frequently, can feel more demanding for the body to handle. The richness that once felt energizing may start to feel dense or tiring when it shows up too often. This isn't about one steak or a special meal. It's about repetition over time when rich foods become a regular habit rather than an occasional choice. Preparation plays a quiet but meaningful role here. When red meat is cooked at very high temperatures or until the surface is deeply charred, it tends to feel heavier afterward. Many older adults notice that gentler cooking makes a difference in how a meal sits with them. Letting meat rest briefly in a simple marinade before cooking, keeping the heat moderate, and stopping before it browns too aggressively are small steps that can make the experience feel lighter and easier to live with. These adjustments don't change what red meat is. They simply change how the body experiences it over time. For many people, processed meats are woven into everyday routines. Bacon on a quiet morning, sausage alongside eggs, a slice of ham in a sandwich, or a hot dog at a family gathering. These foods are familiar, convenient, and often connected to comfort rather than concern. They don't feel unusual, and that's exactly why they're easy to overlook. What makes processed meats different is not how they taste, but what's added to make them last longer and cook faster. Extra salt, curing agents, and stabilizers help preserve flavor and texture. Yet they also make these foods feel heavier for the body to manage over time. When eaten often, they tend to leave more behind for the kidneys to handle quietly without obvious signals. Many older adults are surprised to learn that a long-standing breakfast habit can feel more demanding than it once did. Small adjustments can soften that load without turning meals upside down. Some people gently soak bacon or ham in cold water before cooking, letting a bit of surface salt wash away. Cooking at lower heat, instead of rushing with high flames, often makes these foods feel easier afterward. Just as important is how often they show up. Enjoyed occasionally, they're part of life. When they become daily staples, the body may feel the difference more clearly with age. These choices are about awareness, not restriction, and they fit naturally into real American kitchens. Milk has long been seen as a symbol of health. For many Americans, a glass of whole milk feels comforting and familiar, something that's been part of daily life since childhood. It's often associated with strength, nourishment, and doing something good for the body, especially in the morning or before bed. Those associations don't disappear with age, which is why milk often remains a steady habit well into later years. What tends to change quietly is how the body experiences dairy over time. As we grow older, digestion often becomes slower and less flexible. The main protein in milk, casein, can feel heavier to process than it once did. Some people notice that after drinking whole milk regularly, they feel more sluggish or weighed down, even if nothing feels obviously wrong. The body simply takes longer to move things along, and that can leave more behind than before. There are gentle ways to make milk feel easier to live with without giving it up completely. Warming milk slightly instead of drinking it cold is one approach many people find helpful. Adding a small pinch of cinnamon not only brings a pleasant aroma, but also makes the experience feel lighter and more soothing. The most important step is paying attention. Noticing how your body feels afterward can guide your choices naturally without rules or pressure. At this point, one important misunderstanding needs to be cleared away. Protein itself is not the enemy. Your body still relies on it every single day. It helps maintain strength, supports everyday movement, and plays a quiet role in keeping you active and independent as the years go on. Removing protein out of fear often creates new problems rather than solving old ones. What truly matters is how protein shows up in your life. After 60, the body responds differently and small details begin to carry more weight. The type of protein you choose, the portion you place on your plate, and the way it's cooked all shape how the body experiences that meal. A large portion eaten quickly or prepared with heavy heat and additives can feel very different from a modest serving prepared gently and eaten with time. This is where many people feel confused. They hear warnings and assume they must cut protein back sharply or avoid it altogether. In reality, the shift is more refined than that. It's about choosing proteins that feel calmer for the body, portions that don't overwhelm digestion, and cooking methods that respect how the body changes with age. Once those pieces come together, protein stops feeling like a burden and starts feeling supportive again. That's where the focus naturally turns to options that many older adults find easier to live with day after day. When protein feels supportive rather than heavy, it often comes from foods that work quietly with the body instead of pushing it. For many older adults, that balance begins in the gut. The way food is digested, absorbed, and passed along shapes how comfortable the body feels afterward, including how steady the kidneys feel over time. Unsweetened yogurt is one example many people find easy to include. It's familiar, soft, and simple. Some older adults notice that when yogurt is part of their routine a few times a week, meals feel more settled and digestion feels smoother. A small bowl, eaten slowly, perhaps in the morning or midday, can fit naturally into daily life without feeling like a special rule or treatment. Chia seeds are another quiet addition. They're small, neutral in flavor, and easy to work with. When soaked briefly in water, they soften and blend easily into yogurt or oatmeal. Many people enjoy how this combination feels gentle and steady, especially when repeated consistently rather than used in large amounts. It's not about doing more, just about doing the same simple thing again and again. Mackerel offers a different kind of support. As a fish that's rich and satisfying without feeling overly dense, it's often described as easier to live with when prepared simply. Baking it gently with a bit of lemon keeps the meal light and approachable. Having it once or twice a week feels realistic for most people, fitting into familiar meals rather than replacing them. Together, these foods reflect a pattern that values repetition over intensity. Small portions, simple preparation, and steady habits tend to feel more sustainable than drastic changes. As the years go by, the kidneys change in quiet, predictable ways. Inside them are millions of tiny working units that handle daily filtration. Earlier in life, there is usually more reserve than we ever need. After 60, that reserve tends to feel smaller. The system still works, but it doesn't bounce back as quickly from repeated demands. What once felt effortless now asks for a little more care. Recovery also tends to move at a different pace. When the kidneys are challenged, the return to balance often feels slower than it did decades ago. This isn't a failure or a flaw. It's a natural shift that comes with time, much like changes in vision or joint flexibility. The body adapts, but it appreciates steadier rhythms and fewer extremes. This is where familiar foods can take on a new role. Meals that felt harmless for years may begin to feel heavier simply because the body processes them differently now. The food hasn't changed, but the context has. That's why adjustments after 60 are less about strict avoidance and more about thoughtful care. Seeing these changes through a self-care lens makes a difference. Instead of focusing on restriction, the emphasis moves toward choosing what feels supportive, keeping portions reasonable, and allowing the body to work at its own pace. When protein feels clean and easy for the body, it often comes down to how simply it's built and how gently it's handled. After 60, many people notice they do best with proteins that leave less behind and move through digestion without lingering. These are foods that tend to feel steady rather than heavy, supporting daily energy without asking the body to work overtime. Egg whites are one example that often surprises people. They're plain, familiar, and uncomplicated. Because they're light and straightforward, many older adults find they sit comfortably after a meal. Steaming or gently cooking them into soups keeps the texture soft and easy to enjoy without adding extra stress from high heat or oils. Tofu offers a different kind of simplicity. Soft and neutral, it adapts easily to many meals. When prepared gently, baked or lightly warmed rather than fried, it blends into the plate without overpowering digestion. Some people enjoy how it feels calm and balanced, especially when paired with vegetables or grains they already know well. Tilapia is another option that fits naturally into this pattern. It's mild, easy to work with, and often described as lighter than many other fish. Baking it at a moderate temperature with simple seasoning keeps the meal approachable and familiar. It doesn't need heavy sauces or intense heat to feel satisfying. Quinoa rounds out this group as a plant-based choice that feels complete on its own. When soaked and cooked gently, it becomes soft and steady, fitting easily alongside vegetables or simple proteins. Together, these foods reflect an approach that values ease, clean preparation, and consistency over intensity. There are several proteins that are often described as healthy or practical, yet over time may feel heavier for the body when they appear too often. Turkey bacon is a good example. It's frequently chosen as a lighter alternative, but many people don't realize how much processing goes into making it taste and look the way it does. Eaten occasionally, it fits into normal life. When it becomes a daily habit, the body may experience it very differently than expected. Red lentils are another food that can be misunderstood. They're widely praised, and for many people, they work just fine. For some older adults, though, large or frequent servings can feel dense, especially when combined with other rich ingredients. It's not that they're bad foods, but that quantity and frequency start to matter more with age. Hot dogs are familiar, nostalgic, and easy. They also tend to be highly processed, which is why they feel convenient. When eaten often, they can quietly add to the body's overall workload. Many people notice they feel heavier afterward, even if they can't quite explain why. Whey protein isolate is another surprise for many. It's popular, especially among those trying to stay strong. Because it's concentrated, some older adults find it feels intense rather than supportive when used regularly. Whole food sources often feel steadier and easier to live with over time. Canned beans and beefsteak round out this group. Beans are plant-based and familiar, but the way they're packaged can make a difference if they're not rinsed or balanced carefully. Steak, while deeply rooted in American food culture, tends to feel richest when it appears frequently. None of these foods need to be banned. Awareness, spacing them out, and paying attention to how the body responds can make a meaningful difference. Beyond food choices, daily rhythm plays a quiet role in how comfortably the kidneys work. Small habits, repeated gently, often matter more than any single change. One of the simplest places to begin is hydration. Instead of drinking a large amount at once, spreading water intake evenly through the day tends to feel steadier for the body. Many older adults notice that slow, consistent sipping feels easier than sudden large glasses. The pace of eating also shapes how a meal is handled. When meals are rushed, digestion tends to feel heavier afterward. Slowing down, chewing thoroughly, and allowing meals to unfold without hurry can make a noticeable difference. It's less about eating less and more about giving the body time to process what's already there. Salt awareness fits naturally into this picture. Salt isn't something that needs to disappear completely, but noticing where it hides can be helpful. Foods prepared at home, seasoned lightly, often feel different from packaged or ready-made options. Over time, many people find their taste adjusts, and meals feel satisfying without being overly salty. Morning routines can also set a supportive tone. A breakfast that includes fiber and gentle sources of omega-3 seconds often feels grounding and steady. Simple combinations, used regularly rather than occasionally, tend to fit best into daily life. And movement doesn't need to be intense to matter. A short, gentle walk, even 10 minutes at a comfortable pace, helps the body settle into the day without strain. These habits aren't demanding. Their strength comes from repetition, fitting naturally into the rhythm of life after 60. By now, a simple pattern begins to take shape. Every meal is a choice, not a test. It's a moment where you decide how gently you want to treat your body that day. There's no need to make it perfect and no reason to get everything right all at once. What matters more is understanding what feels supportive and returning to those choices again and again. After 60, the body responds less to extremes and more to consistency. A balanced plate, a moderate portion, a calm pace. These don't stand out, but they quietly add up. When food is chosen with awareness rather than habit alone, meals tend to feel steadier, and the body often follows that rhythm naturally. This way of caring isn't about discipline or restriction. It's closer to cooperation. When you eat in a way that feels lighter, cook in ways that respect your energy, and move through the day without rushing, the body tends to respond in its own time. Not dramatically, but steadily. Small habits, practiced with patience, create a kind of quiet care that fits into real life. Everything you've heard today is guided by one simple idea. Knowledge is more helpful than fear. When you understand how your body responds over time, decisions become calmer and more confident. There's no urgency here, no need for drastic changes, just clarity and the freedom to choose what feels supportive for you. If this conversation helped you see your daily habits a little differently, you're welcome to stay connected. You can give this video a like if it felt useful, or share it with someone you care about who might appreciate a steady, thoughtful approach to health. And if you'd like more conversations like this, you may subscribe to the channel to join us regularly. Here, we focus on caring for the kidneys, the liver, and the heart after 60 through practical knowledge and gentle habits that fit real life, no extremes, no pressure, just guidance meant to help you feel more at ease with the choices you make each day. The body has an incredible ability to adjust when it's supported with patience and understanding. When care is steady and informed, balance often follows in its own time.